Hey, it's Molly. Welcome back to my channel as we take a look at the Libra Lunar Eclipse happening on March 25th, 2024 at 3 a.m. Eastern Time, so be sure and adjust for your location on the planet. The Libra Lunar Eclipse is happening at 5 degrees of Libra in your chart, with the moon directly opposing the sun at 5 degrees of Aries, 7 minutes. And you'll notice visually how this particular lunar eclipse chart is in a bucket configuration where all the planets are down here, and then the moon is the handle of the bucket. And so because it's a full moon, of course, this is where something is being illuminated for you at 5 degrees of Libra in your chart. And it's also a very strong focal point because in a bucket configuration, basically you could see it as this is the audience looking at the star of the show, which is the full moon. And it's showing you something in these Libra energies and expressions that you are also ready to consciously work with and transform. And that's because the moon is receiving a supportive trine here from Pluto at 1 degree, 45 minutes of Aquarius. And this is always an intensification of energies. Pluto wants to evolve and bring to light what has been hidden. And through the trine with the moon, it's something that you just weren't seeing in yourself. It could be something from the dark side of the moon, the other side of your consciousness that is being illuminated and coming to light now. And Pluto wants you to work with it powerfully. So there is significant change here. There are things that are very personal, which is the moon, very personal, perhaps even showing you more about how these Libra energies have expressed themselves in your life through the other, through partnerships, through relationships, through communications and one-on-one interactions. And then the trine to Pluto is having you look at the bigger picture around where you're going, which is what that Aquarius energy is about. It's very future focused. And it's also bringing you some new levels of self-awareness and understanding around the types of people that are good for you. And so with this energy right away, there are relationship changes. And these can be positive. These can be up-leveling. This can be like, I'm ready for this growth. I'm ready for this change. This could be something too where there are changes happening around you, perhaps in the workplace, perhaps with people that you are used to interacting with, and everyone's feeling that there's something bigger unfolding. There's something significant here in our social relationships that are coming up and are coming to light. This also brings up the role of social media, the internet, things that are done online, and Pluto is changing that. Pluto is bringing up more around the energy and the dark side of social media, how it affects mental health, how it shows us that maybe there's too many energies in the world that we are feeling or sensing. And so what do we need to do to be more powerfully in charge of what is best for us, especially emotionally? So there is a very personal energy signature here because, again, the moon is the most personal of the various planets and luminaries, and Pluto is requiring growth, requiring transformation for all of us individually and collectively. Now, something else to be aware of here on this chart is that also means this Pluto is sextiling the sun. The exact sextile happened right after the Aries equinox. And so the sun has been on a journey as well of opening up to more of what this Pluto in Aquarius is bringing to our attention and wants us to be in charge of. Now, Pluto in Aquarius working with the Sun in Aries highlights independence, highlights what you're doing that is uniquely you, the courage, the desire to go for it, the understanding that you have the courage to go for it and to do what is correct for you. So this can be quite invigorating. This can help you with those new starts that maybe you felt were on the horizon and now they could finally be here. Now in this chart, the moon in Libra is ruled by Venus. So then we look to Venus here, who is at 16 degrees of Pisces, 33 minutes. She's exalted in Pisces, meaning she does very well here. She is amplified in her love, her intuition, her empathic nature. However, she's just coming off of an exact conjunction with the Saturn, who's now at 12 degrees of Pisces. And this Saturn always has lessons and things he wants Venus to be aware of. And I feel like when Venus was conjunct Saturn in Pisces, it was looking at, am I being too empathetic, too intuitive, too sensitive? Is my emotional energy turned up too high? And I feel that this Saturn wants us to rein it in, wants us to be very responsible with that loving kindness that Venus in Pisces so readily offers. This could also have been something around finances or money, decisions you had to make in those areas of your life. Also, of course, relationships that are ending, closing out, phasing out, especially in Pisces. And this Venus, she could be sad. She could be mourning or grieving something quite privately, and the conjunction to Saturn would have made it real. So there's something about this energy signature that we are still feeling during the lunar eclipse that we're meant to honor and learn from. And that's part of the conjunction with Saturn is, okay, how can I do this differently? How can I be more responsible with my energy and with what I want to give or how I want to serve? Am I truly serving others if I'm depleted? Am I rescuing others? Am I enabling others? So there could be some big things that this Venus in Pisces is contemplating and moving through, especially as the lunar eclipse is unfolding. Now, what we do have though is that both Venus and Saturn are beautifully supported here by Jupiter at 15 degrees, 56 minutes of Taurus, and Uranus at 20 degrees, 28 minutes of Taurus. This Jupiter is now out of retrograde shadow, where Jupiter stationed retrograde at 15 degrees, went back to 5 degrees, and is now past that shadow territory and is approaching the exact conjunction to Uranus, which will unfold a month from now. So after eclipse season, we have this conjunction at 21 degrees of Taurus, and it's almost like a third eclipse because of Uranus there. So this energy is gaining strength in your chart. They are approaching their exact conjunction. They're less than 5 degrees apart. So we're feeling it now. And these energies in Taurus typically want to ground us, stabilize us. But with Uranus, it's throwing everything up into the air. And it's creating some bigger questions around what really matters to you. And so this can be life changes that you feel are getting closer or are picking up, which is right on time for eclipse season anyways. But both of these are sextiling Venus. And Venus is the ruling planet of both Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus, because Taurus is ruled by Venus. So she's quite prominent here. She's quite significant, but she's she's behind the scenes, working at deeper layers of our being, helping us finalize karmic relationships, things that we're done with, patterns we're complete with, helping us be more aware of our hearts, our empathy, our intuition, how we give, how we serve. But she's feeling stronger with the sextile here to Jupiter and Uranus. In fact, Uranus is helping her shake it off and to not feel overly burdened. And she's also getting grounding from these planets in her home sign of Taurus. So it's interesting because these are feminine energies, the planets here in Taurus and the planets in Pisces. You'll notice that there's 4 planets in Pisces, this Mars, Saturn, Venus, Neptune. So there's a part of us that understands we're ending some really big things, some really big chapters and energies in our journey. And we're trusting it, and we're managing to find our internal core, to feel grounded, to take it one step at a time, to look at where, okay, that's too much, or I can just shake that off, or, just be in the present moment, be in this reality, ground into the wisdom of Gaia and nature, and allow that to be something that supports you. Because I feel like it's important to note that this Venus is moving through a lot that she's not openly disclosing. And you could feel like there's things that you are realizing, you're closing out, you're done with, that is right on time. And at the same time, this eclipse trining Pluto has got you moving forward into the perhaps connections, relationships, business developments, things with new people, new opportunities that are exciting, that are better aligned. So it's a very interesting juxtaposition of energies. I did do a separate podcast on this because even though it's a Libra lunar eclipse, the biggest energy is in Pisces, which is honoring a part of your soul experiences, the karma that's ending, the spiritual growth, all these also very creative energies that are in the mix. Things that want you. I'm feeling gratitude and forgiveness. The energy of how can I be at peace for myself? How can I be complete with something so that it can set me free? Because this is also creative energy over here in Taurus, and it's wild and spicy, and it's bringing in some new starts here, especially in April, around what you're ready for next. That could be a surprise and quite delightful. Amplified energies here are building in Taurus. Now, we also have to note that this Mercury at 23 of Aries, 39 minutes, is moving slowly because we do start Mercury retrograde on April 1st at 27 degrees. And this Mercury will be making 2 additional conjunctions with Chiron during that retrograde process. So there's going to be more here that you're meant to sit with and internalize, to think it through. And I actually feel like this Mercury retrograde in Aries is going to support a healthy slowdown, because sometimes that Mercury in Aries, this is a speedy one here and wants to go fast, impatient. Why aren't we there yet? This is going to help with intentionally slowing down what you need to say, express, make sure you're thinking it through, that you're not missing any details or important matters. So overall, this Mercury retrograde in Aries can help you be more intentional But it does take conscious effort to take a pause and give it a beat. It's also helping us work on the Chiron wounding so that we are rewriting a narrative with Chiron. And Chiron's important because of how the April 8th Aries solar eclipse is exactly conjunct Chiron at 19 degrees 24 minutes. So Chiron's a big deal here into April, and Mercury is giving you some messages and things that you didn't see before. You didn't see it before, but Chiron wants to support your soul's medicine, what you need, what supports you, what's good for you right now. So these Aries parts of your chart are still important and big, especially because this is where we're going to have that Aries solar eclipse on April 8th. Now, something else that really stood out to me about this chart is if you have planets or points in the early degrees of Gemini, this is a big deal. This eclipse is a big deal for you. And yes, this is very specific, but stay with me because I want to explain this. So if you have planets or points between 0, we'll call it 0 to 9 degrees of Gemini. I'm going to go the first decan there. You could even go to 12 degrees of Gemini if you want. But planets here are receiving a lot of support through the energy of this chart because there's going to be a grand trine with the lunar eclipse, Pluto, working with early degrees of Gemini, any planets or points. I was thinking about how, some of you might have Saturn in Gemini, right? If you were born, I think it was the early 1970s. You have Jupiter in Gemini, early degrees. Even Uranus in Gemini, Chiron in Gemini, Mars, Venus, Sun, you get it. Any planet in the early degrees of Gemini, this is potentially a life-changing lunar eclipse for you with the involvement of Pluto and this grand trine, because the first decan of Gemini you just had in 2023, Saturn squaring that part of your chart. And it was something disappointing. Maybe it was a sadness. It was something you wanted. It wasn't coming together. It wasn't happening when Saturn was squaring it. Now with this eclipse, there is energetic support for this new beginning that's emotionally rewarding and also better than what you had thought might happen in 2023. And then it's even truer to who you are because it creates a kite configuration with the sun at 5 degrees of Aries. So again, that's why I feel like these Gemini planets are getting something in this cycle that they need. And I know this is super specific, but it's really worth pointing out because look at how all this energy comes together when the Gemini planets are involved. Now, this can also be super supportive for planets or points in Sag, okay? The first decan of Sag, where you're also getting support after having that Saturn squaring the early degrees of Sagittarius about 2023. A disappointment, something you wanted, it wasn't coming together. The vision didn't happen. You had to stay flexible. You had to let it go. Now, this particular lunar eclipse with the moon working with that, also trining sun, sextiling. The planets in Sag are at the apex between the moon and Pluto. helping you create that next level dream or vision. So again, I'm going to say 0 to 9 degrees of Sag, just like 0 to 9 degrees of Gemini. So that's why this chart is actually quite dynamic beyond what we're seeing what we're seeing initially. Now, yes, this Mars at 1 degree of Pisces is coming through and will square the planets in Gemini or planets in Sag, but is going to move through. And it means perhaps the first version isn't correct. Maybe it's just something you have to emotionally manage. Mars in Pisces is a tired warrior. He has fatigue. He's not going to give it his all. He's going to rest and surrender until the energy shows up, where he's like, yes, I'm going to go for it. Now it connects. Now it's correct. But this is a more passive Mars. He doesn't fight for what he wants. In fact, what he's doing here is he's resting in order to prepare for his re-entry into Aries. So this Mars is actually being guided by his intuition. This is a very intuitive focus on this lunar eclipse. It's very intuitive. And that's interesting when you compare it to like the strength of the air signs here, Libra and Aquarius. So you've got the ideas coming in, you've got the communications, you've got things coming through, lining up, and then your intuition is like, okay, give me a beat. Let me feel into this. Am I repeating another cycle? Am I going through something that's familiar, but actually I've outgrown it? And with every lunar eclipse, something is eclipsed. So something is going to change in the Libra areas of your life and in your chart. But it could change for the better with that connection to Pluto. And so this can certainly be new alignments occurring, new power couples, new dynamic duos, new people working together that are a surprise. You're like, oh, I didn't even know they knew each other. Or I'm surprised that those two are together. Or wow, that really makes sense. The energy aligns. So there is a relationship focus here. It also relates to friendships, realizations around friendships, maybe that aren't satisfying or are no longer a fit, but then the energy can bring in new friendships, new connections, new members of a soul tribe where you have shared passions, shared interests. It's like it's just simple, it just lines up. So this energy, especially with the air signs, it's social. This is very creative, but it's important to be very intentional because there's something that you've learned. I know that's a big category. There's something though, but it's through relationships. Relationship patterns, behaviors, your needs, your worth, what you want, what matters to you. I mean, again, this Venus has been under stress with Saturn. You're getting it. You're getting it. There's something you're really understanding. And look, both Venus and Mars, the feminine and the masculine, are here. They're both parts of yourself reflecting on, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what you need, what you don't want to repeat. And that's what's elevating you, is understanding I'm not going through that again. I've learned this lesson. I understand that I am ready for what's next or what's better. And all of this is true within your partnerships, okay? Within marriages and business partnerships and all dynamics with people. There's something about holding yourself accountable here to your self-worth, your self-love, your self-respect, and allowing that to be a guiding force. And again, that could be exactly what eclipses things. That's where you could feel like I'm done with certain connections or dynamics, because those parts of me that were seeking some kind of emotional connection are understanding what I've been learning. Again, the moon being very personal about your own relational habits and patterns. So a very strong focus here on your own spiritual growth, where you're ready for the new starts, and also the part of you that is reformulating your personal values, your self-worth, and your needs from a whole new frequency, which I feel is what this Uranus and Taurus is bringing up. The new frequencies that you want to embody and live from going forward. So yes, quite a dynamic Libra lunar eclipse. And I hope this offers you some good things to navigate through this eclipse cycle, understand what you are closing out and completing, as well as what you are calling in and powerfully attracting, what you're magnetizing in with this trine to Pluto and Aquarius. So thank you for joining me. I hope this has given you some good insights to work with, and I'll be back soon with another video for you here on my YouTube channel.